Alright, so a couple videos back I mentioned that I wasn't a huge fan of this particular map for setting up your flights, and I still fight with it. Most casual players are going to be doing VFR in the direct GPS mode up here under the airplane, where you can select your different modes. Now shortly after I made my last video and I said I'm not sure how to switch any of their modes, I just saw that and you change it from the drop down menu. But again, if you want to see the sights or do something in this, let's say I want to go swing by Denver. Okay, Denver's in my flight, not a big deal. I'm going to take off from Rocky Mountain Metropolitan, no big deal. Take off, make a left turn. We'll come down, swing past Denver, and then we'll shoot off over here to Aspen. No big deal. That's an easy thing to do. But what if I want to, say, come down here by the Air Force Academy, but I don't actually want to go to the airfield. I want to go to the academy, which is a little farther up in the hills here. Again, I can't click and just drop something on the map. You have to be far enough away from things that it works. See, suddenly now I can place a custom icon way out there in the middle of nowhere. I don't want to go way out there in the middle of nowhere. I don't want to depart from this guy who's driving a Saab. And there's nothing else I can really do about this unless I click on, say, go to Colorado Springs and then add it. Now this, so far, is adding it in great progression because that's kind of what I'd like to do. Let's say I add regional. We continue adding airports here. Okay, now let's see if it'll let us complete a full circle. So far, it's working. Now they did do a recent update, and that's where it starts to switch. So I was trying to do this in San Francisco the other day, and I was just trying to fly around the city, and it takes you to the closest waypoint airport direction. It's all kind of screwy. So I wanted to take off from Rocky Mountain and fly around the city, and then come back here and then go back to the airport where I wanted to land. Instead, it changed my departure to go there, which is great. That's awesome, except I didn't ask you to do that. So if I remove it, and you can see it gets me back on the right track through Denver and all the other places that I set up that I wanted to go. So I can't really set a proper flight plan the way I want to do it. I have to follow kind of what it does. Now sometimes it's going to just work out like it did for most of these, but as soon as you kind of add something out of the way, it's going to get kind of screwy and pick its own. So sure, if I wanted to make a stupid loop around the city and come all the way back here to Fort Collins, terrible idea, but for fuel efficiency, but it should still let me select my flight plan. It's my flight plan, not the game's. I can do what I want. I'm the pilot. So that's really disconcerting, and the fact that I can't just pick a waypoint here and say I want to fly here. Most of the time you're not just going to do that unless you're flying a bush plane or you're in a Cessna just kind of doing your own diddly flying thing, but you're going to go somewhere else. There's going to be something out here that you can select and go to. I shouldn't have to come here and pick all these little tiny single runway small airports and add them so that I can have some fun flying my airplane and do something. That's not really the way these things work, so that's a little bit disappointing in the way that it goes. So I'm going to add Colorado Springs back into this and fly there. And in the nav log, you can see it doesn't give me a whole lot of distance to get 7,000 feet up, 12 nautical miles to go up that altitude. That's kind of crazy. Now, we do start 2,000 feet below that, so it's not the end of the world, but it's just kind of a crazy ascent to go zoop, and then the nice long descent. Anyway, I know planes do climb pretty quick and they do get up there. It's just the way this sometimes does it looks a little funky. Now let's say we wanted to change this and do it a little differently from the visual flight rules and using GPS to, say, VOR. Now VOR requires instrumentation, and you tune your radios to different frequencies of these stations so that you can fly towards them and get a little close, if I recall how it all works. And let's say I want to add Colorado Springs back in there. And you can see it's doing some screwing now where it's taking me to Colorado Springs and then all the way back up to this waypoint. Well, that's not at all what I want to do. Let's remove you. So those are the visual ones. Now you can set these up a little differently. The biggest issue again I have with this map is you really don't have visibility into the real world vectors, the real world communication stations, transponders. You don't have access to any of that. You're just kind of stuck with what the game shows you, which is just airports. Now if you want to get really technical, you can switch over to IFR and pick either low altitude or high altitude airways. Big jets, they're going to fly in the high altitude. Stuff like I'm flying here in the Citation, you're going to fly low altitude. And with the IFR, you're going to be doing a lot more with instrumentation and specifically following those transponders and specific waypoints on a map. Typically, if you're going to play like this, I would suggest, as I think a couple other YouTube videos have shown as well, you use a program like SkyVector, which is a very common real world application for pilots to set up their navs, and you can even file with the FAA straight from the website, so you can actually pick your different points. You can see all the information. You can pull up taxiway, airport maps, communication frequencies, and if you're going to fly really serious and using this as a sim, then that will be the best bet, because it'll help you tune your radios and everything to all the right frequencies, and you actually have to take notes and get all super technical in it. Now again, see, I don't know why it kind of goes haywire in screwing all of this up, because it just it doesn't allow me to properly fly around. If I could see the waypoints, then I could move some of these over, and there may be a way. Again, this is just a casual view into what's going on. So these are the legitimate waypoints to get me there, but I don't want to go to Colorado Springs from the middle of this. I would make more sense to take off and go to Denver. See, I don't know why it's having me go there and then back. Nope, I just broke my whole waypoint. So yeah, everything's kind of going haywire here. And now I got to start over. But see, that's some of the issues that I've had in trying to be slightly more serious with the game. It's very possible, and you can do a lot of very detailed stuff. I mean, most people aren't going to be doing a sightseeing tour in this type of a situation. You're going to pick your airport here, you're going to pick your airport there, and you're going to fly the waypoints all the way there. But likewise, you're probably not going to be doing a funky setup kind of like I've been doing, where you're going to tool around on multiple areas. Set as arrival, let me get that going. This is most likely what you're going to do. You're going to take off and you're going to fly your waypoints. If I wanted to go down to the Air Force Academy, or if I wanted to go to Colorado Springs, then I would choose a flight plan that takes me to Colorado Springs, and then one that takes me from Colorado Springs to Aspen's airport. That way you're flying more proper. It'd be two separate flight plans, and you'd have to kind of exit and come back in and refile and do all of that stuff. Or just, if you can get into the onboard flight computer, you can program it all yourself. But again, as a casual player who just wants to jump in and fly, it would be nice if I could simply see some of these common waypoints, and if I zoom in, I could see them, or I could at least toggle that level of activity and maybe some interactions with something like SkyVector that allows me to pick my waypoints, or even allow me to fully import this from SkyVector. Let me plot the whole thing out in SkyVector, import it here, and then go through and set up what I want to do on it. And you can see here the low altitude thing is only 6,000 feet, which is a little bit low for us. We're going to actually go up to we need to go up a little higher, because there's a lot of 14,000 foot mountains here. So we're going to go up to 16,000 feet. Hopefully this slow ascent gets us over that. And that's the other thing that this doesn't really take into consideration entirely. Through a lot of the Class A, B, and C altitudes, you're limited, or not altitudes, but zones, you're limited to the altitudes that you can typically fly, as they need to navigate you under and around and out of the area. So it does a good job, but it's not 100% complete. Wow, you're saying I'm going to be 500 knots doing this when I just noticed that my airplane caps at 483, so if I'm doing 500 knots, I'm in overspeed. Anyway, I just wanted to give a show to this, and I really hope they tweak this a little bit, because the map has a lot of great options to it, but you should be able to toggle some of these other options to actually view the other waypoints so you can pick where you want to fly. I mean, that's what a pilot does. Yeah, they may pick the most efficient at something like SkyVector, may allow them to just go direct and it'll fill in all the dots in between. Commercial airlines do that all the time. They fly set patterns and set paths and they don't have to do it again. But if I want to deviate or if I want to go somewhere, I should be able to do that, or I should be at least able to plot some alternates and see some of these things. So it's a little depressing. Now I can change a few things by picking a different departure, but again, I'm taking out of some of these specifically, and that's where I'm going to go. Arrivals, this is where you can do some other fun things. I've got direct as my only option, but under approach, I guess this airport doesn't have it. Never mind. Other airports that have ILS, the instrument landing system, will allow you to actually set the ILS. I don't know why I don't have that option. I guess Aspen doesn't have an ILS system, probably because the mountains would screw with the signals potentially. But if you are heading to a place that has ILS, so let me redo this. Okay, here you go. I can pick the ILS, and all that does is my computer, when I'm using autopilot, will have an approach option, APP I believe it is, on the buttons. That will allow you to push that, and you'll basically tune into a cone, basically a signal that's in a cone that shoots off the end of the runway and just guides your plane down in, and you'll just fly in on autopilot until you get 5 nautical miles or so from the airport, depending on conditions and all that, and then autopilot will shut down when you hit a certain level, and or you'll turn it off and you'll fly in the last little bit, but otherwise autopilot gets you lined up and brings you in all nice and automated. So that's a cool system, but it doesn't look like Aspen has it. So I want to fly a certain way, but I'm not going to be allowed to, so I'm a little sad by that. But I just wanted to show this map again and give you guys kind of an idea of the level of detail that you can do. Now, in older flight sims, I did do a fair amount of more sim style flying where I would get the frequencies and I would do a lot more of that. Unfortunately, for me to go through and do a proper map out and go through all these waypoints, get the frequencies and do a full sim, there's no way I have the time for that. I would love to be able to do that, but again, the purpose of these videos is just to give the casual player an idea of how to get in here, have some fun, and do a bit more. And you can certainly switch this over to low altitude, follow the waypoints, come into your nav log. See, it still has my 16,000 feet, which is fine. You can still come in here and do kind of this basic stuff and let the AI handle your radios, and then you just change your charts and headings to fly the waypoints. And that's what I'm going to do on this. So thank you guys for watching. Hope this gives you a bit of an idea. I'm sure you might have already seen some of the other videos out there that covers a lot of this in greater detail. But if not, well, then hopefully this gives you an idea of what's available. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.